So please give it up for Ben.
Morning, afternoon. Yeah, it's afternoon already. First thing I have to ask, are there any physicists in the audience? Okay, there's one over there, there's one over there. You two are probably gonna hate me because I'm talking about time, and I'm talking about energy, and I'm talking about money. And I'm not a physicist, so I probably am not very good at talking about time and energy, but afterwards you can tell me how I did. Okay, so, if we're talking about time, energy, and money, we've basically got 3 questions that we need to answer. The first is hopefully obvious. What is time? Time is a complicated thing. It's actually pretty hard to answer what time is. So we can break that down into 2 different ways of looking at it. We can first ask, what is time as far as the universe is concerned? So, time, as far as the universe is concerned, is a dimension. So, all of space-time is one thing, one kind of object, if you want to call it that. And time is just one particular direction you can travel. So, in 3-dimensional space, I can go up and down, I can go left and right, I can go forward and backward. And in time, I can go only in one direction, strangely enough. You actually can adjust that a little bit, and I'm not going to go into the details because honestly it's not that important, but the physicists might be interested in seeing how well I explain this. As you accelerate or as you are near a large mass, time actually slows down for you relative to everything else. So you've got this wonderful relativity theorem I'm sure you've heard of. But time always keeps going in the same direction, and it doesn't go in the other direction. So it's kind of a little bit different to the other dimensions. I can walk this way on the stage, and I can turn around and I can walk this way on the stage. I can't do that with time. I can't go back. So why is that? Well, there's this thing called entropy. Entropy is kind of the winding down of the universe, the way that everything kind of evens itself out over time. So energy becomes more diffuse as time goes on. So entropy is the movement towards this disarray. And we're going to come back to that. But before we do, what is time from a human perspective? Rather than talking about the universe's perspective of time, what is time to us? We're born, we live for some unknown number of years, or hopefully some unknown number of years. I mean, if it were days or weeks or months, that would be quite sad. But we live for some unknown number of years, and then we die. We can think of time frames longer than our own lives. We think of things like the legacy that we leave for our children. We think of the future. We think of the distant past where things were different. The past is another country is probably something you've heard. So time from a human perspective tends to be constrained around our lives as this kind of grounding force, and then everything that happened before it, and then everything that'll happen after it. So that's time from a human perspective. But if you think about it, time from a human perspective really is grounded in the same thing as time from the universe's perspective. Time from the human perspective is important because it only goes in one direction. We can't just do over yesterday. We can't just decide that yesterday we're going to make a different decision than we actually did. I'll go back and I'll give Laszlo 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin, and I'll hold on to those. Wouldn't that be nice to be able to do that? But I can't, because time goes in one direction. So with a reasonable understanding now of a couple of different ways of looking at time, we can ask the question, what is energy? Energy we have to also look at in the same way as time. We have to first look at it, what is energy from the universe's perspective? Energy is how things change and how much they can change other things. So energy from the universe's perspective is the ability to affect change. And again, I already used the word energy when I was talking about time, because I was talking about entropy, and entropy is energy diffusing. So this happens within time, and time is a necessary component of energy to do anything. Energy does nothing without time, and time is meaningless without energy diffusing. So you can really think of time and energy as kind of two parts of the same system, this kind of time and energy system for the universe. But okay, what's energy for people? Well, we put energy into our work. You know, I'm using energy right now to stand here and talk to you. I put energy preparing this presentation. You put energy in to come here and listen to me, and hopefully you're using some energy to think about what I'm saying. But we put the energy into our works in such a way that we use it up. And what are we actually doing when we use up our personal energy? I'm not speaking metaphorically here in terms of energy, like some kind of woo-woo thing. I actually mean our physical energy. We eat food, we turn that into heat energy and kinetic energy, moving our muscles around. What actually happens? We increase entropy in the exact same way. So the human perception of energy is in fact the same as the universe's perception of energy, just from another perspective. So time and energy is this interlinked thing, and whether we're talking about it from a physics perspective, how the universe sees it, or on this very personal human level, we are talking about the same thing. So, what's money? Can we try the same experiment? What's money from the universe's perspective? Nothing. The universe has no concept of money. Money is utterly meaningless to the universe. So what's money from a human perspective? That's actually an interesting one to answer, because it doesn't immediately touch on time or energy. You'd expect that maybe in some way it should, since those seem to be so fundamental to us. But actually, money is a representation of value. So then we have to ask, what's value? Okay, if money is a representation of value, what is value? Value is our wants and our desires. I want to have something. That means I value it. You want to have something. That means you value it. But money is a special kind of value, because it's not just this subjective idea that I want something. It's actually an intersubjective idea between us. I want to have a bottle of water because it's hot in here and I'm standing on stage and I'm talking a lot. Maybe you have a bottle of water and you want to have 5,000 sats. So you could give me a bottle of water and I could give you 5,000 sats. We just exchanged because of our intersubjective value for those sats. To me, thank you very much. To me, a bottle of water is worth more than 5,000 sats. But to you, 5,000 sats is worth more than a bottle of water. So that's how we can come up and exchange value between us. Give me a second while I open this. I wasn't expecting him to actually bring me a bottle of water, but that's very, very nice. Whoa, are we on? Yeah, we are. Okay. So if money is an intersubjective valuation, then we've got a reasonable idea of what money is. But what do we actually value? So we know that money is a representation of value, and we kind of have an idea of what intersubjective value is. What things do we value? Personally, I value things like love and joy and friendship and honor. Those are things that I consider valuable. Most of you probably do as well. You like having a good life. You don't want to be sad. You don't want to be in pain. You don't want to be uncomfortable. You don't want to feel dishonored. So we value these very human things. Can we tie that back to time and energy in any meaningful way? We actually can. In order to be happy, I have to do something. Doing something uses energy and takes time. To be an honorable person, I have to expend my energy over time. To feel joy, I have to expend my energy over time. You don't get these without energy and time. So, what do we value? We value our energy and our time. If you didn't have the energy and time to be happy, you wouldn't be happy. So if you value being happy, you value energy and time. All right, we're getting back to the question I asked before, but hopefully we can answer it in a slightly more meaningful way now that I've kind of laid some groundwork. What is money? Money, realistically, is a measuring stick. It's a metric. It's not all that different to other kinds of metrics that we have, like meters or kilograms or newtons or decibels. It's a way to measure something. We're measuring intersubjective value between people, which, as we know, is fundamentally tied to time and energy. So should money be able to be represented in terms of time and energy? It seems like it should. Do we currently represent money in terms of time and energy? We really don't. So what is money actually measuring? Money is measuring our desire for our time and energy. So it is that measuring stick. But how do we value money? We need to think, what did we value? We have valued things like love and honor and that sort of thing, and all of that came back to the time and energy. So can we say that a certain amount of value equals a certain amount of kilowatt hours? No? Yes? Maybe? One of the problems with current money is that we keep on changing how much it's worth. The amount of money in existence changes. Whether you're talking euros or dollars or Czech crowns, the amount of Czech crowns that exist today is different than the amount of Czech crowns that existed yesterday. So if we're trying to say that money is a measurement of intersubjective value, we're not measuring the same thing from one day to the next. We're really not even measuring the same thing from one moment to the next with the way that the current financial systems work. So it's like changing the meaning of 1 meter. Imagine if I wanted to say how far away London is from Prague, and the definition of a meter changed every single day. How far is it to London? Who knows? It's a little bit more than it was yesterday, or a little bit less, or I don't know. We've changed the value of a meter. It's meaningless. That's how bad money works. That's how our current monetary systems work. We change the value of the thing that we are trying to measure value with. It's utterly ridiculous. So good money doesn't do this. It doesn't change its value. Good money stays the same. You can measure with it, and you can be sure that that measurement is correct across time and across space. Good money is therefore inherently tied to time and energy. It has to be. There's no way to do good money without tying it to time and energy. Bitcoin is good money. Bitcoin is inherently tied to time and energy. We brought Bitcoin into the world with this system called proof of work. I don't know how technical this audience is, but to give you a basic idea, Bitcoin exists because on average, every 10 minutes, a new block is mined into the Bitcoin network. In order to mine a block, we expend energy. We put energy into this system. Once enough energy is going into it, it finds a block. And this is kind of a pseudo-random process. I won't go into the technical details, but it's this process where, on average, every 10 minutes we find a block. But obviously, if we keep putting more and more energy into it, we'd generate Bitcoins faster and faster, and then it wouldn't be every 10 minutes anymore. We wouldn't have this clock built into it. So the cleverest thing that Satoshi Nakamoto did when he designed Bitcoin was he put in something called the difficulty adjustment. Every 2016 blocks, Bitcoin changes how hard it is to find the next block. And that's based on how quickly all of the blocks before it were found. So Bitcoin acts like a clock. Bitcoin is using time as one of its fundamental properties. Bitcoin is using energy as one of its fundamental properties. So Bitcoin is good money. But maybe you've heard that Bitcoin does change its value over time. What's this weird guy here standing on stage saying that Bitcoin's value stays exactly the same? You know, Bitcoin was worth this many dollars, a few weeks ago. Now it's worth this many, and then next week it's worth that many, and then this many again. Bitcoin's value changes all the time. No, it doesn't. One Bitcoin is 1/21 millionth of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist. When you measure Bitcoin in Bitcoin, it is completely stable. That may sound like a tautology, but that's not true for other forms of money. When you measure dollars in dollars, when you measure crowns in crowns, when you measure euro in euro, it's not the same. €1 yesterday was a certain percentage of the total amount of euro that exists. It's now a lower percentage of the total amount of euro that exists. With Bitcoin, one Bitcoin is always 1/21 millionth of all of the Bitcoin that exist. So it is a measuring stick. And it doesn't change. So Bitcoin is good money because it is guaranteed by energy and by time. Thank you very much, and we do have a little bit of time, so I would be happy to take any questions. I believe there's a microphone which will be handed around for anyone who wants to ask. Any questions? Physicists, did I get anything wrong? Question over here?
Thank you. Good talk. So according to what you said, so do you agree like maybe Bitcoin is like a battery where you can save some energy?
So I've heard that analogy a lot, and as an analogy, I quite like it. As a realistic definition, I don't like it so much because Bitcoin doesn't store energy. Bitcoin stores value that was created by energy, and the value is intimately tied to that energy, but it's not storing the energy itself. There's no way you can take Bitcoin and run your electric car from it. You can buy new energy, sure, but it's not the same energy that went in. So it's an analogy, but it only stretches so far. Question back there? Okay, yep. Oh, it's off.
Yeah, so you are totally right that one Bitcoin is 21 million of one Bitcoin.
Yep.
But we also have the effective value if we consider the errors in self-custody and several million will be lost. So we can actually say that the value will increase, right? The effective value.
Effective value, yes. So that's one of those things whereby I would still say all 21 million Bitcoin will continue to exist and will always exist. Just some of them become unavailable and no longer on the market. So that, you're right, the effective value can increase by the loss of Bitcoin. In 2010, when I first discovered Bitcoin, I believe I mined 4 blocks. I'm actually not totally sure because it was so long ago and I didn't care at the time. So I had like 200 Bitcoin and then I just hit the delete button and they were gone. So, because back then in 2010, you didn't care. 200 Bitcoin was a meaningless nothing. If I had known then what I know now, obviously I would still be holding on to those. But yeah, those 200 Bitcoin are gone forever, and in a way you can consider it a donation to everyone because it reduced the amount of Bitcoin, therefore increasing the value of everybody else's Bitcoin.
Yeah. Can you have more than one good money within the same time energy system?
I believe no, but there are some interesting thoughts I've had on that, and it is an interesting question. So I'm not going to say definitively yes or no, but I believe no. I don't think you can have more than one money within a single economic system. So if you look over time, you'll see there are countries and societies that have tried to use more than one form of money, and eventually the lesser one just kind of fades out, and they will use the better form of money. You do see it over longer times that they're using two, but it kind of dissolves and peters out. I think the world has had quite a few different currencies over the years because we've been very separate. As the world becomes more interconnected, more of a global society, I really think we have to trend towards one money, and it will just happen naturally. And I believe Bitcoin will be that money. So over time, I think the answer is no, there will only ever be one. But in the short term, sure, there can be a lot, and people will create new things, and they'll disappear again, and things will come and go. And maybe one day something will even supplant Bitcoin, but honestly, I don't believe it. I don't see any reason that that would happen. The time and energy-based system that Bitcoin is too perfect. I think we would have to discover new physics to get something better than Bitcoin.
Hello.
Hello.
I have a question. How do you explain the fact that Bitcoin doesn't actually exist? It's just a ledger, and if it doesn't exist, how can it store value?
I think that, so it's a good question, but I think your question is based on some false premises. It's based on the idea that value has to be based on something, has to be backed by something. There has to be something real or tangible for value to happen. But you might recall earlier, I was saying we value, the actual value things that we have are things like love and honor and the freedom to do what I want and friendship. Those are the kinds of things that humans actually value. And none of those things are physically real. You can't take a particle of love, but we value it a lot.
What I also wanted to ask was, how would you explain this to somebody that thinks that Bitcoin is actually a coin?
Honestly, if I was talking to somebody who thinks that Bitcoin is some kind of physical coin, I would have to just go right back to the start and first explain what money is as this intersubjective idea between people. Because if they're starting from the foundation of thinking of money as a physical object, we really have to go back to basics first.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, I think. Yep, go.